Hello and welcome to this episode of Akrinos Access. I'm your host, Eric Matei, joined today by Scott Lineweaver. Scott is the founder of Eye and Ear, and we're going to have a fascinating conversation here about optometry and audiology, increasing access to grow your practice. Scott, hello and welcome to this episode of Akrinos Access. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Eric. It's an honor to join you.
So, look, I know we have a lot of things to jump into. So, really, what I thought we would do here for our viewers out there, this is probably a concept you may have kind of heard of here and there, and maybe left kind of scratching your head. So, what we really want to do is kind of put this into a couple different pieces. First and foremost, we're going to kind of do a deep dive just into like understanding what the public health need is for hearing and hearing care. Then from there, we're going to kind of jump into how this overlaps with eye care, and then third, jumping into really how can you implement it in your private practice. So Scott, again, man, I know we have a lot of things to get into, and you are you're hands down the expert on this, so really excited to jump into it. And I suppose for starters, why don't you just share very briefly about your background, right? Coming from the audiology background, kind of a little bit about your story and how you came to seeing this opportunity in bringing audiology into optometry.
Absolutely. Thank you, Eric. So 22 years ago, I started at ASU in speech and hearing, and quickly went into the audiology field versus speech because I like the technology. So after beginning with the field and working a large franchise in hearing care, I went on my own and did that for 12, 14 years even, and then discovered along the way that patients were coming to me from great distances, an hour's drive to get an audiologist. Sorry, but yeah, so they were coming great distances, and I decided that it was time to maybe provide satellite locations. In doing that, I discovered that it was a great need. There was great support for the patient in providing satellites. So I reached out to optical centers and put them put hearing care in optical centers that would want to sign up. And this provided for the patient. It also provided another source of revenue for the practice owners. So it's a win-win. And that's really how it got started. And so 6 years ago is when I kind of put the effort into Eye and Ear. I've made it official only a couple of years ago with the brand that out. But I've been doing it for a long time. It is a great model. It's prevalent in Europe. So, this is very commonplace in most of audiology is in hearing care, optical offices. And even in Canada, Specsavers, large chain, has an audiology program. So it's doable, and a lot of optical centers and owners just don't understand how it's doable. So we help them to understand, to get certified, to have technology. We wholesale hearing aids, and we provide iPad screeners that they can utilize that will help sort them out, whether they're going to be in an over-the-counter model hearing aid or whether they're going to be in a prescriptive hearing aid through an audiology partner. That's basically the nutshell of what we do.
Awesome. Well, look, let's take it from the top then. Let's talk a little bit about this public health need, right? I mean, exactly what is the prevalence of hearing loss and the need for care? And then maybe from there also, you can educate us a little bit on the different types of loss and also the different types of hearing aid options available.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, hearing care is very underserved in the world, really. Like, it's the World Health Organization puts it as one of the most undertreated conditions of public health. So, there's 1.25 billion consumers worldwide that could benefit from hearing care. And I can tell you right now, with the shortage of audiologists, they're not being served. And so that's where, for instance, in this country, the deregulation of hearing aids has come about because there's just not enough audiologists. There's a lot of them retiring. So, we now have a new segment or classification of hearing aids that can be fit over the counter. Sometimes they're purchased online, and yet that's not the best form of care of even an over-the-counter hearing aid. The best form of care is to have a professional involved, somebody who has
Sure.
attention to detail. And that's where we reach out to optical centers to make sure that they are professionals who have attention to detail. Let's make sure that they're involved in the equation to help patients with their investment in hearing care.
So let's talk a little bit about some of those options. You said there's been some deregulation. Obviously, when referring to this, I mean, that's a pretty sizable public health need. I mean, if it's probably 1 in 6, right? 15, 16, 17%. So about 1 in 6 people experience hearing loss, struggle with that, right? But obviously there's a grade, right? I mean, there's kind of like, hey, I can get by and it really doesn't interfere with my day to day, versus like, wow, I've got some real needs. So why don't you, if you could maybe speak to some of that continuum and the different treatment options or aid options that are out there as folks are finding themselves experiencing this.
Sure. Yeah, so the effects of hearing loss can be very detrimental to relationships. It could be, it can affect your business relationship. Somebody who has hearing care can be looked at as maybe not as intelligent. They're not hearing, they're not picking up on the assignments. So unfortunately, it's very detrimental to relationships, and even income earning, so it's that effect, it affects that much. It can affect one's income. There's also just the benefit of being able to communicate. When there's easy communication, there's more of it, and when
Sure.
there's communication, when there's less of it. So that's so essential. And so with the various options, there are options that are personal sound amplifiers that are simple, very simple hearing aids that do not, or hearing devices that don't really fall in a class of hearing aids. They are personal sound amplifiers. But then there's another class, new segment called hearing aids that are over the counter. And that class only fits up to a moderate degree of loss. And this is where our iPad screeners that we provide to optical partners will help to identify the degree of loss that is mild to moderate. And then the optical center can make a recommendation for over-the-counter devices, and the wholesale prices that we provide will pay. The optical center will have 100% margin on the sale of over-the-counter. So very good. It's very good margin. It's worthwhile, and the patient again has a win in having a provider, because some places are so remote. It can be a big help. And then the next degree of loss that will be shown on the iPad screener, if it falls beyond moderate, then it's a prescriptive type of device. And that's where an audiologist or a hearing aid dispenser is going to be coming in to perform additional testing at your clinic. And again, there's revenue to be made, and the patient wins by having a professional involved that's expert in their field. So prescriptive level hearing aids, generally they're covered by insurance. There's discounts provided through all the big insurance companies. So that's potentially a patient you've never seen at your clinic who's been referred by an insurance company to eye and ear, and then we funnel them into our optical partners. And again, all new patient, potentially never stepped in your door. This patient has now adopted your optical center as their eye and ear expert location in hearing care, getting prescriptive hearing aids. And of course, as they're your patient, this is an opportunity to present to them that you'll take care of their optical needs as well.
Yeah, and it's really interesting how you position that, because it's realizing that, again, it ties back to this huge comorbidity, the prevalence of hearing loss with those that are also experiencing the vision loss, right? So it's realizing that, in a practice, I mean, let's take a typical practice in any town in America, serving, a couple thousand patients a year, maybe has a database with 3 or 4x whatever they're serving in a year, right? So realizing that in that patient population, there's a ton of folks that have the need for hearing, but then also realizing that there are folks and patients out there that are coming in from a hearing need that are now in your optometry practice, whereby that overlapping vision need can be addressed. So it's absolutely remarkable. It's really remarkable stuff, Scott. So let's talk a little bit about, right. So we understand there's this huge public health need. We understand that, there's limited access, right? We have a ton of optometrists. We have very few hearing professionals. What is it? I think the ratio is like 6 ECPs to one,
Yes.
to one ear care professional or hearing care professional, right? So an opportunity to serve a lot of folks, right? Let's talk a little bit about the mechanics of it, though, right? And I know this is something where eye and ear, you guys have some incredible things. And by the way, viewers out there, if you want to learn more about eye and ear, definitely head on over to eyeandear.com. And Scott's going to share a bit more contact info as we wrap up here at the end of the show. But right now, Scott, why don't you speak a little bit about, what are some of these keys to implementation as it pertains to operations, as it pertains to marketing, as it pertains to your team, right? Because I think that's probably something that I know for me, that's something definitely front of mind. It's like, okay, how are we supposed to take our technicians and our opticians and repurpose them doing hearing type stuff? And then also the retail piece, right? Which obviously anyone in Eyecare is no stranger to that. As a matter of fact, I think, optometry and eye care professionals are hands down the most proficient in the retail side of healthcare. But maybe you can speak to some of these functional areas of the optometry practice that we're going to have to make some adaptation to incorporating hearing into the practice.
Absolutely, yeah. It does require some marketing, some effort in informing patients. And we in our packages that we provide, for instance, the gold package found on eyeandear.com, that provides everything you're going to need. It's turnkey. It's going to give you the marketing message from the time they approach your door through all the way through through their optical evaluation, their eye care exam. So they're going to be advertised as to there's hearing care here too. And so that's where the marketing message comes in. There's I Can Hear certification, where we're going to bring your staff up to speed to be confident and competent in over-the-counter hearing aids. And so it's very turnkey. Basically, you're going to be working with the same clientele. You're just going to let them ask questions, and you're going to have the knowledge as to how to approach their questions and answer their questions, and provide trials. You can provide a trial of hearing instruments under your care. Again, your expert care and attention to detail. That's what it requires in hearing care. So did I get your question?
Yeah. And really, I mean, I suppose, and this is where it's in the interest of time, right? Because we could probably go an hour down, deep dive down each area. And obviously, what you guys do with eye and ear is you've got kind of everything under one roof, right? You've got this package where we've got the standard operating procedures, as operational components. Certainly, you speak to the marketing side of things. You also spoke to the team training, and then the fact that you guys also, y'all are a direct distributor, so you can provide products through this supply chain where practices can trust that product and that supply chain coming direct from you all. So why don't you share perhaps? I mean, I know, for our listeners out there, Scott and I first crossed paths a few years back, and it's been really cool to see eye and ear evolve over the years, and most recently, Scott, a couple of weeks ago at Vision Expo West, you guys had a great showing there. So why don't you share, maybe you could share, what you guys have seen, whether it's testimonial, maybe you have some success stories that you can kind of, anything you could toss out there. Because again, it's really far out what you guys are doing.
Yeah. So actually at Vision Expo a couple weeks ago, we brought a testimonial from our ophthalmology practice that has multiple locations, and in some cases it's there's enough redundancy that we can take a optical room, and again, we're going to run hearing screens. So it's either self-administered or by the patient, or they're run by a tech that's I can hear certified, and then the testing is performed that way. But basically, we're sorting out those that have need, and we're discussing hearing aids, and those hearing aids can be self-administered. We provide wholesale of hearing instruments that have MAP pricing. That's a minimum advertised price. So that once that patient takes them home and is going to run a self-test, the app will guide the patient through a self-test in their living room to have those hearing aids fit for their needs, after you've screened and sold them, of course. Then they have completed that, they're fit, and if they go online to search for hearing instruments that maybe they want to, I'm going to get a better deal on Amazon. Well, guess what? They cannot find a better deal on the hearing aids we curate. Those instruments have a minimum advertised price. So no matter where they search for them, they won't find a lower price. And so you're assured the sale that way. You're not going to be beat up on it. We don't want you to be pulled in a direction away from your optical sales, which is your bread and butter. That is your primary business. This is a supplement to that business. Creating a specialty practice, having additional income. It may be enough that you cover the cost of your staff in full just by hearing aid sales, or even your lease in full. And that's very often what we see from our practices here. They have additional revenue that can cover advertising and other expenses. But the testimonial that we brought to Vision Expo was very good. The office manager attesting to 200 new patients that they didn't have before. These patients came in through insurance referrals that we placed in the optical center. So we have a great track record. We can make this happen in a very simple manner without affecting your optical business, without distracting you from your primary practice.
It really is. It's absolutely amazing to consider all of these overlapping patient care needs, right? And this growing scope of care of modern optometry to serve those needs, and to consider that while we speak, in eye care, we speak, hey, are we about primary care and vision care? Are we about, specialty care, medical eye care? I think certainly hearing fits right there, right along with other areas. Like, I know a lot of modern optometrists getting into incorporating nutrition and lifestyle into their scope of care. So it really is fascinating to consider the role of hearing care in this sort of holistic health care that modern optometrists are capable of providing. What you got, Scott?
Oh, on that note, last spring, it reported in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease. There's a report. There was a 10-year study with 5 million participants. And in this, it says that if you have vision loss, you up your odds of cognitive decline. If you have hearing loss, you up your odds of cognitive decline. But the combination of which is actually more than A plus B. It's like A plus B plus C. So it's alarming when numbers don't add up, and they actually are bigger combined than just a simple math formula. Then that's alarming. That says something that it's 8.1, I believe, times 8.1 times more risk of cognitive decline.
Wow.
When you have the combination, which is called dual sensory loss.
Sure.
So that's something that's very alarming and coming into public knowledge. And that's part of the advertising message that we share. That's a very important study that we place in your office that will help the patient say, oh, I can't just say, oh, I'm getting by. I'll just turn the TV up. No, it's a more serious matter than that. And the again, 10-year study, 5 million participants. You can't just pass that off as not important. That's a very important study. And this is where a lot of folks that you're seeing that are requiring optical care, those same folks are saying, my biggest concern is my cognition. Like I want to be sharp. I want to remember my family. I don't want this to slip. That's a huge concern for people that are 60 plus, 65 plus.
Sure.
Want to keep their mind sharp. They'll go through Sudoku and various things that'll exercise their mind, but simply putting in hearing devices is that exercise. It keeps the stimulation to the brain. which is so essential. It goes hand in hand, like you said, with optical. Probably nothing better that you can place in your practice than the combination of hearing with optical. And that makes a lot of sense, and especially according to this study, which is part of the advertising that we're going to place in your practice. When you register on Eye and Ear, under the About Us page, you go to register as a professional, and we'll be contacting you shortly after that.
Scott, I tell you what, man, this has been a really, really cool, really insightful conversation. Talking optometry and audiology, how increasing access can help grow the practice. A lot of really cool insights you shared there regarding this huge public health need, and really how modern optometrists are positioned right there front lines to be connecting with these patients and getting them the care that they need. So Scott, for those wanting to connect with you, I know you frequent LinkedIn, so folks can find you there on LinkedIn, address at the bottom of the screen there. And then as far as continuing the conversation and learning more about Eye and Ear, eyeandear.com, folks can learn. Actually, you guys have a great site with a lot of really great data and studies there, a lot of really great resources available as well. So
thank you.
Yeah.
It's all available on the Eye and Ear website, and you'll discover that this is something that's been in place for a long time. We just make it turnkey. Again, Eye and Ear. It's very common for the combination. Like Europe, it's commonplace. In medical and educational institutions for decades have had the combination of Eye and Ear. You'll see links to Princeton Eye and Ear, Massachusetts Eye and Ear, New York Eye and Ear, Dallas Eye and Ear. I mean, the list goes on. This is not something you have to be standoffish or concerned. It's been in place for ages, and
Sure.
we're just going to make it very turnkey and simple for you. You'll
Yeah.
be profitable too.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing stuff. Well, Scott Lineweaver of Eye and Ear, thank you so much for your time today as we were talking about optometry and audiology, ways to increase access and grow the practice. To our viewers out there, if you're looking for more great practice management insights like this, be sure to subscribe to the Akrinos YouTube channel, follow us on the socials, and head on over to Akrinos.com. Got some really great content there and a lot of really awesome ways we can help you bring your vision to reality. So on behalf of all of us here at Akrinos, Eric Matei signing off.
Thank you.